The subtle, vital, and astral worlds. Hello, this is Chris speaking. Wake up with a video about the subtle, vital, and astral worlds. What does this mean? Sri Aurobindo calls them the vital world or plane, and Meher Baba calls them the subtle world or sphere. And then there's also in the New Age lingo the astral world. This is basically all the same. Usually we live in the gross, the physical sphere, where we perceive our bodies and all kinds of stuff we can perceive with our five senses, and in which our thinking operates. Once you wake up, you can access the subtle world or vital world, which you can divide again into several layers. Meher Baba divides them into 4. The first one looks exactly like the gross sphere. The second and third are mostly about siddhies, supernatural stuff, occult stuff, things we would call in the West occult. And also, this is where the astral thing is happening, or branches off, where you can meet beings, demons, angels, ghosts, gods, plant spirits, animal spirits, and so on. That's also where shamanism operates. And I would recommend to you to ignore this. If you meet some beings, just ignore them. The least harmful are animal and plant spirits, but everything else, just ignore them. It's a distraction. And to have access to the subtle world basically means that you can perceive more than before. It's not that you leave one world, go through some colorful tunnel or wormhole into another world that looks totally different. No, it just means that you can perceive more aspects of the creation than before. But most of them are distractions, and your ego can latch onto this very quickly and think, oh, I can do this, now I have this siddhi and that siddhi, and I can talk to angels and blah, blah, blah. It's all just distractions and the ego trying to re-establish itself as something or someone special. That's the trap. As soon as you feel like you're someone special, you have fallen back asleep. And you think that the peak experiences you have experienced before are still where you are, but that's actually not true. It's all just a memory, and you're back asleep. So ignore all these siddhis and beings and astral projections and dream work. Lots of people ask me about lucid dreaming, what I think about lucid dreaming. It's also, again, it's a siddhi that also can seriously mess up your nocturnal recuperation. Your mind and your body, they need to relax during the night and repair themselves. They don't need you to mess around with lucid dreaming. And all the stuff you can see in the subtle, vital, astral worlds, which is all the same basically, it's just like cinema. It's like a beautiful movie. Don't take it too seriously. The aim is beyond that. Where you want to go is the mental, so-called mental world, which doesn't have anything to do with a thinking mind. It's just a translation from Sanskrit. The mental world, to have access to the mental world, is what people call enlightenment or non-duality or whatever. And all the funny gadgets you have learned in the subtle world are then not important anymore. Because in the mental world, you start to see something of the grand strategy behind all the lila, behind all the creation. Or if you go into the Advaita direction, you can see that it is all a world of appearances. So the aim is to have a quiet mind and not to be identified with anything. The aim is not to accumulate as many supernatural abilities as possible and to meet all kinds of invisible beings. That's not the aim, but that's what a lot of the subtle, vital astral realm is about. And people can get stuck there, just as you can get stuck in the gross sphere by believing, no, it's only that exists which I can see and hear. In the subtle world, you can get stuck by feeling great about yourself because you have supernatural abilities and you see lights and beings and spirals and universe and so on. This is also one of the things sometimes with some psychedelics like DMT and LSD and so on, you can have access to the subtle world for some hours. And this is often confused with the higher state of consciousness. No, it's just that these substances give you a temporary access to the subtle world, but there's no use in it. It's in itself, in and by itself, except in a therapeutic context in which they were used by tribes who discovered them. Many healing techniques like shamanism and prana healing and theta healing and mind flow and whatever, they're also part of the subtle world. It's practical for healing. This is a positive, I would say this is a positive use of the subtle realm. Also, you can use what you can experience in the subtle realm for self-healing, trauma healing, and so on. What is called in India purification. But purification is nothing else than the dissolving of habits and conditionings and identifications. And it's very important to know that just because you have access to the subtle world or later the mental world doesn't mean that you're better. You just have a view that is slightly more complete than if you just trust in the soul existence of the gross physical sphere. If you read Sri Aurobindo's Savitri, all these different subtle worlds or aspects of the subtle world, vital world, are explained and described in detail. Otherwise, you can find it in Meher Baba's God Speaks, which has a funny dedication. I always liked it. It says here, dedication to the universe, the illusion that sustains reality. In the end, it's all illusion, the gross sphere, the subtle sphere, and the mental sphere. Reality only, or truth only starts afterwards. In what Sri Aurobindo calls the supramental and Meher Baba calls the seventh plane. Meher Baba explains that in the second plane of the subtle sphere, it's all about energy. Yeah, you can sense energy, which is really, really cool and fascinating, but don't get stuck there. In the third plane, you can feel power, the power of existence, yeah, the force, how Sri Aurobindo calls it. And you can see that, for example, in Leo videos or Frank videos, they talk about this. Not knowing that they're there. They think it's the highest consciousness, but it's only the third plane, a part of the subtle realm. And this is also the main plane on which siddhies happens, these occult powers, yeah? And where you can get into contact with beings and so on. Just ignore it. Go further. Here you have access to the oversoul or overmind, like Sri Aurobindo calls it. In the fourth plane. In the fourth plane you have access to the overmind or oversoul. And you start to see this evolution, physical evolution and evolution of consciousness. And you start to have a sense of the infinite. And of the divine also, whatever that is. And here you can also see that all these powers, all these siddhies, are better not used. This becomes very clear. Meher Baba writes, if you get hung up on powers in the fourth plane, you fall down very far, and you can start from the beginning. So remember, jets further, 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 further. Don't stop. Don't get too fascinated or too egoic about these things that you can see and experience and do in the subtle world if you have access to the so-called subtle mental or astral world. Just go on further, further, further. Just watch it like a movie. Don't use the siddhies. Go on and continue your de-identification. Continue to let go of your habits, conditionings, brainwashings, beliefs, emotions, thinking, everything. Just watch it, but don't get hung up on it. This is the so-called subtle realm, or vital realm, or astral realm, as opposed to the gross or physical sphere, where only our five senses work. In the subtle realm, all kinds of other senses are added. And all this has to be sacrificed. All this has to be surrendered to be able to reach the mental realm and later the supramental. So this is also the answer to many mails I got about siddhies and astral projections and lucid dreaming and so on. Don't take it seriously. Whatever you hear and feel, perceive, it's like a movie, nothing more. It's a more interesting movie than the physical sphere before, but it's the same thing. It's also an illusion. It's another layer of illusion, and reality is beyond that. Thank you for watching. Thank you to all my Patreons. Thank you for joining me on Patreon. Thank you for subscribing and hitting the bell button and sharing the videos with your friends. And see you soon.